G'day everyone, it's Warren and Colleen here from NQ Explorers out on another relic hunt. Today what we're going to do is film an entire day no matter what we find. We do a lot of detecting that doesn't get filmed because often you don't find things. But we're going to do a bit of reading of the country, looking for relics and old camps. So obviously back in the mid-19th century, whether it was a gold show or tin or copper or lead or silver, the miners had to camp near the workings. So adjacent to these workings there's always an old camp. Now we were in here a couple of weeks ago and we did a bit of desktop research, and then we came up on a recon trip, and just before dark Colleen spotted something in the bush over here which we're going to show you now. So what do you reckon, we get into the Land Rover and go over and have a look?
Yep, let's go.
Let's get into it. Quite a bit of...
Looks like a bit of old pottery on the road here, so...
Okay, so we're getting all these little clues, aren't we?
Yeah.
And we'll just go over now and show you what we spotted in the bush that led us to this particular location. Okay, so what have we got here that you spotted in the bush?
Well, it looks like just a bundle of old rocks, but if you have a close look at an old camp.
It's been a chimney, or...
Yeah.
It's... I mean, they would have had a tent, but it, like Colleen said, it's not a natural... They've been put here, these rocks. And there's several little formations, isn't there? There's... So these have been parts of a campfire or a rudimentary chimney on a calico tent setup. So they've been working this creek down to ahead of us there, where Colleen is, for gold, and they've been camped up on this flat. So as you can see over here,
another one there. Perhaps another one down here as well.
Yep. So they've put a bit of habitation work in here, so I'd say they've been here for quite a lengthy period of time. Back up on the track 100 metres we found that ceramic and a few bits of bottle fragment. That's not a natural rock formation, that's been placed. So the miners have been camped here. So this is just raw field work. We don't know what we're going to find today. We've never pulled a detector out here. We're just going to have a scout around for a few hours, and then over that gully perhaps on the other side. It'd be worth checking all that, wouldn't it, Colleen? Yep, definitely. Righto, well we might have a cup of tea first. Then we'll crank up the detectors. Let's get into it. Well, there's my first target out of the old camp. It's the remains of an old mining shovel. Could even be a handmade jobby. Nice big piece of iron. We've got the iron down quite low today. There's a lot of iron in here, which is great. I like to see that because it means there's been a lot of activity over an extended period of time.
I've got a signal here. It's jumping around quite a bit and it sounds like a bit of iron audio in it as well. But I'm still going to dig it just to see what it is. It's only 3 or 4 inches down. Might be just iron. Oh, there we go. It's come up already. Oh my goodness. Look what it is. There. It's a heel of a shoe. Yeah. Oh well, it was a good solid sound. It's still in pretty good condition too. Look at that. Yeah. Oh well, that's a good little relic to find. Okay, I've just got a little target here, and it's an old handmade nail. It looks like one of those mini dog spots off the railway, really. Yeah, that is really, I don't think I've ever seen one like that before myself, but it's beautiful.
Well, there's my first actual repeatable signal after about 10 minutes detecting. It's the end of a clock key, I'd suggest. That's awesome. It was a solid 62, very repeatable. Unlike the iron signals, which obviously break up in the opposite direction generally, or you get a bit of tone roll or a little bit of iron grunt on the edges. It's a very promising relic find, actually. I'm happy with that. Okay, let's move on. Well, there's Colleen working on some targets over there. I don't know what she's found so far, but the finds are coming together. Nothing sensational on my part yet, but I just got a nice piece of old brass off a tin, a supply tin. Could even be an opium tin, because the Chinese were definitely in these diggings. Very solid signal, with no tone roll. It's not, obviously it's not ferrous. That's very old and dates from the time of the gold rush, so these are all great clues that we were picking up as we go.
Okay, this one's only about 3 or 4 inches down. There's iron audio in it, but it's jumping around a little. But it's sort of between 40s and 60s, so it's worth... Oh, there it is already. Yep. Let me see if you can... Yeah, a bullet. Okay, we'll see if there's a number on it to know exactly what it is. We'll see if there's anything else in the hole. Oh, good one. A lucky horseshoe. Apparently you've got to hang them that way so the luck doesn't run out of them. Yeah, well, there's lots of things in this old site that doesn't look like it's previously been detected heavily, so you never know what you're going to find here.
Well, I don't normally dig targets this big. It's a 90 signal. I knew it was going to be large iron. I was thinking buried treasure chest, that's all that was going through my mind, but instead it was an awesome old miner's shovel. That was about a foot down under this old prickly pear here. Well, that prickly pear wasn't there in 1860. But look at this shovel, it's in great condition. Riveted onto the actual shovel blade. And I'd say that's why the miner's thrown it away. That's the cast piece is snapped or something. That's my hole there. There's little bits of glass and ceramic came out with it, and an old sardine tin, which was just in pieces. So that's a lovely old gold rush relic right there. Museum quality, I'd call it. We're about to head back to the Land Rover for a bit of a drink and morning tea. I just unearthed an old boot heel. Colleen tells me she got one earlier on. That's awesome. Haven't really recovered any coins or high tone targets as such, but they'll probably be in here. We've just got to find them. Well, there's my next relic. It's a bell and black matchbox lid off the Vesta matches. We've got a large number of these in our collection, but that's in pretty good nick for the lid. The box itself doesn't appear to be here. Really good indicator that the old timers were camped here for some time. I've dug a few pieces of that old supply tin or opium tin or whatever it was. What do you got here? You said you got an old screw, like a coach screw.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, that'd be out of an old wagon or a dray or something, I'd say.
An old screw.
Yeah, an old steel one.
Another beautiful old nail.
Gee, look at that. That's a worked,
yeah, handmade
square nail, but made in the local foundry, I'd say, on the goldfields. That's a nice old relic, actually.
One. Yeah.
What'd you say? You got a draft horseshoe too?
Oh yeah, I've got a horseshoe. I'll videoed that one.
Oh, okay. Righto. Well, they're definitely in here, the old timers, aren't they? Some interesting relics are going to come to light, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, this was my next target. I'm not quite sure, but it looks like it may be a thimble. Certainly the size. It's quite heavy, but there's a lot of dirt in it anyway. So look a bit further. I think it may be a thimble. Yeah, I'd have to clean that very gently, I think.
Well, as my hole, it was a fairly scratchy target, 56 to 58, and then it jumped a bit in the opposite direction. Wasn't optimistic, but I got a nice little relic anyway. It's an old timer's shirt button from the 1860s or 1870s. Nice old brass button, not one of the branded ones, but could be off any part of clothing, because Everything was buttoned in those days, there were no zippers. Well, I just got that button and Colin just called out she got a buckle, but it's broken. What kind of buckle?
It's like a lady's buckle, actually, doesn't it?
Oh, gee, that's a nice bit of big decorative buckle. It was in a couple of pieces, wasn't it? Have you checked the hole?
Well, I've only found the 2 pieces so far.
Colin's got the gold there with the Z-link, so you can't hear the audio. I say that's crumbling in pieces, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's one of those Victorian costume. Oh, that's pretty heavy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Got a nice little pattern on it.
Yeah.
Nice find. Morning tea time, the kettle's on. Ready to go with our cup of tea and something to eat. Have a bit of a break. Well, it's a bit hard to convince Colleen to do that. Look at her over there, she's just still digging. She just told me she found a thimble, which is interesting because we've found a thimble, or she's found a thimble, and a lady's buckle in pieces. So that means the women folk were in here, which tends to indicate that the miners were here for some period of time, because there weren't by and large a lot of women on these remote goldfields, but that's all good. So this little spot in the bush, which revealed itself through these old rock structures, is paying dividends. We're pretty happy with this.
Okay, this one's ringing up quite high. Oh, that's why. Yes, very conductive. And most of the targets are really quite shallow, just close to the surface, only about 3-4 inches down. And the soil's nice and soft, not too hard to dig at all. So it's just a pleasant day out detecting.
Colin's just called me over to another camp she's discovered. Some crockery. Oh yeah. Bit of stoneware jar. An old stoneware jar. Well, she's had a bit of a dig. I think she said she found a couple of pieces of lead nugget. What looks like maybe a fireplace. And a little level bench area here. So, quite a bit of activity in this small area. Interesting stuff. Well, this one's a surface target, but the detector did alert me to it. Old shoddy shell. Yep. Probably an Elo London. I can't see it there. It's been laying in the sun for a long time, that one. Here's just another little tip about reading the ground for relics, as you would for gold, looking for certain signs that indicates what you're seeking. Going to be hard to see on the video, but there's a little benched area here. It's a tiny little flat area that's been excavated. It's not natural. The interesting thing up in the back though is this. You can see the remains of an old building stump, a second and a third all in a row. So I reckon this is a little shop or a store that serviced this part of the goldfields where these miners were working. Now there is a fair bit of ceramic scatter on the ground here. I'll see if I can pick some up for you. There's a bit of glass. But it's in this area. There appears to have been quite a bit of activity. Ceramics, bits of old pottery, and bits of broken glass. Okay, my next find's pretty good. It's up in the bush here behind that old, what I thought might have been a little store. And it's a beautiful old stirrup. It's not a brass one, it's cast iron, but whatever, it would have been a bit of a loss back in the day. There she is. It's a good solid signal, I wasn't going to walk past that. There's another substantial fireplace camp set up here. Some nice rocks there to sit on. I'm just going to head up the creek a bit further on the left. Up here, Colleen said there's a bit of a bottle dump, and we'll just go and investigate that. Well, here it is. It's definitely an old timers bottle dump. We've got the old green beer bottles from the mid to late 19th century. We've got a bit of ceramic plate. We've got some square bottom bottles, mostly beer bottles by the look of them. Obviously they've worked this gully. This is their little dump, probably downstream of their camp, so there's maybe another tent camp up in there. We haven't found any like substantial scatters of relics. What you saw today, we found quite a bit there, but no coins or although Colin got that nice ladies belt buckle and what appeared to be a thimble. But there's definitely more in here. There's just got to be, because when they've drunk this much booze, they're laying down to sleep somewhere. Doesn't mean you're going to find coins, because they're not out here spending coins. They're going to town to do that. But yeah, that's an interesting old 19th century bottle dump. Well, that was a day of pretty much unedited detecting. That's typical of a lot of the days we spend in the bush. Like I said, you do a bit of research, a bit of desktop work at home, recon in the bush, you discover things like those old chimneys, the old bottle dumps. Don't always turn up fantastic relics, and not necessarily coins, although occasionally there can be a bonanza. Not so today, but that was a good day out. We still found some nice old relics that obviously indicated that the old timers spent some time in here. And the interesting thing was that there must have been women here. Well, that's what I think with the thimble, and definitely that women's buckle that Colin found in fragments. So not many women on the ground in the goldfields normally in these remote spots, and that sort of suggests some kind of permanency, maybe a whole season or two back in the 1860s. They worked these gullies to the left and right. When we come back, what we'll do, we'll go looking for some nuggets, actually, up and down these gullies where the old timers have worked, which will be interesting. But these old camps are always a lot of fun. You know, you never know what's going to turn up. I hope you enjoyed that outing with us there today. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.